John Ulzheimer is known as one of our nation's most recognized credit experts. Having worked for 28 years in the credit industry, John has become one of the most prolific speakers about credit and the go-to authority on answers to credit-related questions. Credit Countdown with John Ulzheimer.
Hello, my name is John Ulzheimer. I am a consumer credit expert. I have almost 30 years of experience in the credit industry. I've spent time at FICO, which is the company behind the FICO credit scoring system, and Equifax, which is one of the 3 generally recognized credit reporting agencies in the United States. So today I'm going to answer a viewer question, and this particular question is, are there credit cards without credit limits? Now, obviously a credit limit is the uppermost boundary of your spending power on a credit card. So if you have a credit card, for example, with a $10,000 limit, then you can charge goods and services up to that amount without any sort of approval needed by the card issuer, because that's kind of the pre-assigned available credit on that particular card. If you try to go over your credit limit, your credit card issuer may decline that transaction, or they may allow you to go over the credit limit slightly, but then they're going to charge you an over-limit fee. So keep your eyes on that. So I'm going to answer this question, which was something I really don't like doing. I'm going to answer the question with a question. So if we were in a trade show or some sort of a presentation forum, and I was up giving a presentation on a stage, and you were sitting in the audience, and someone raised their hand and said, "Hey, John, are there credit cards without credit limits?" I would ask you, why are you asking? And then I think you would be asking for one of 2 reasons. Number one is you may have seen some sort of an advertisement on television or on the internet, or one of the various credit card wholesale websites that have like a bunch of different credit cards, like almost like a credit card strip mall, if you will. And you may have seen some advertising indicating, hey, this card does not have a credit limit. So that may be one of the reasons why you're asking. The other reason why you may be asking, which I hope is not why you're asking, would be that you pulled your credit report and you saw your credit card account appearing on your credit report without any sort of credit limit value, okay? So, are there credit cards without credit limits? And the answer to this question is, kind of. There are certainly limitations that your card issuer puts on a credit card that kind of prevents you from charging anything under the sun. I mean, you can't go buy a house with a credit card. You can't go buy a boat with a credit card. There are certainly scenarios where your card issuer may indicate that you don't have some sort of a preset spending limit, but you do have what's called a shadow limit. And the shadow limit essentially lurks back there in the background, and it's the card issuer's way of kind of controlling how much debt you can get into and how much risk you expose them to. This is an important issue for a specific reason having to do with your credit score. Credit limits are an important factor in your credit score because it allows credit scoring systems, FICO, VantageScore, and such, to calculate various ratios, meaning relationships between balances and credit limits on your credit card accounts. There is a very important metric in scoring systems called revolving utilization. Some people call it the credit utilization ratio. And basically it's the relationship between the balances on your credit cards and the credit limits on your credit cards. And the math is actually fairly simple. So it's your balance divided by your limit times 100 equals the ratio. So if you have a $500 balance on a card that has a $1,000 limit, that's 0.5. You multiply that by 100 and that's 50%. So your card is 50% utilized, and that ratio is very influential in your credit score. You want that ratio to be as low as possible. However, if you have a credit card on your credit report that does not have a reported credit limit, then the way that ratio is calculated is somewhat chunky, meaning that it's not as clean and as simple as calculating it based on a balance to the limit ratio. So what scoring systems will do, if there is no limit on a credit card on a credit report, is the scoring system will look at the highest balance you've ever had. So it's called the historical high balance, and they'll use that value in place of the credit limit to calculate the ratios. If the high limit or high balance and credit limit is missing from a credit card account, then that particular credit card account is bypassed and is not utilized in that ratio because there's no way to determine what your limit or high balance is, and so there's no way to use that card in some sort of a ratio metric. In order to calculate a ratio, you have to have 2 numbers, one number relative to another number. If you don't have any of these values, then you just have balance but nothing to compare it to. So I would like for you to check your credit reports and make sure that all of your credit card accounts do in fact have a credit limit being reported, and if not, then please contact the card issuer and ask them to please report your credit limit. That may or may not work. Some card issuers have policies that they don't report credit limits because it keeps them from being poached by other card issuers who may come in and say, hey, we'll offer you twice the credit limit that so-and-so is offering you, and hoping to steal your business. This was a big problem about 15 years ago. A lot of large credit card issuers were withholding credit limits, and it was almost like a snowball. If one did it one month, another one would do it the next month, then another one would do it next month, and all of a sudden you had a pretty decent handful of really big credit card issuers that were withholding credit limits, and that can become very problematic for credit scoring systems. So hopefully this answers your questions about credit limits and shadow limits and how that is all determined. If you have any questions about this, drop them in the comment section below and I'll be happy to answer them. Have a great rest of your day and we'll talk again soon.
For more videos and credit tips from John Ulzheimer, go to www.tradelinesupply.com.